Greetings, everybody. A word about Saint Valentine. I wanted to talk about Saint Valentine because of his feast day on February the 14th, and also because it's such a popular feast day that everybody loves to. Well, that's whittled its way into the popular culture for better or for worse. I don't think it's a terrible thing that it has. Of course, it's taken on a meaning that's completely um, from left field in terms of like chocolate and cupids and bows and arrows and going out to eat and kind of heart-shaped lovey-dovey's. You can find some pretty impressive write-ups on this, and I cannot dispute, nor will I argue the authenticity, the validity of any of them. So I think that's whatever you wish to observe regarding cultural trappings on this day, don't let me stop you. As long as it's all things bright and beautiful and nothing crazy. So, but have a great time on St. Valentine's Day, which is the 14th of February. I want to speak a word about the citation that where he is mentioned in the liturgy of the Church, which is in the Martyrology. I'll describe that in a minute, and then just what we know briefly about him, and then just a personal connection regarding him as well. He's cited in the Martyrology of the Church. The Martyrology is specifically the Roman Martyrology. Is the name of a compilation of citations about saints, and it's tied to the calendar. Saints who have died on this particular day. Just as any family might observe anniversaries of loved ones, of important days through the year, and as the family grows and gets bigger, those days accumulate, and people share birthdays in common. And today's the day my nephew was born. Tomorrow's the day my grandfather died. Next week's the week, the day that my parents had their anniversary. And so we compile this list, and the Church has done this from its beginning, especially in the city of Rome. And the Roman compilation of these important dates is referred to as the Martyrology. And the Martyrology, I mean, obviously it sounds like it has something to do with martyrs, and that's in very many ways it does. It commemorates those who died, especially in witness to the faith on these particular days. And what will happen is that the Church in Rome has assembled and compiled citations for many, many saints, and it's historical. It goes back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years with saints all the way back into the antiquity, the oldest days of the Church. And it used to be in the liturgy of the Church that officially this citation would actually be read as a part of the day's prayer in the liturgy of the Church. So wherever the Church was praying officially, or most officially, let's say, it used to always include the citation from the Martyrology for the day. And it still exists, even though it's no longer an obligatory part of the daily liturgy. And it used to be incorporated into the hourly recitation of the Psalms, which is still part of the Church's everyday worship. The Church prays the prayer of the Mass, most importantly, especially on Sundays and all the days of obligation, and every day. But in addition to the Mass, the Church is always reciting the Psalms of the Bible, and which is why at St. Joe's we have one of the stained glass windows is to King David, who is reputedly the author of the Book of Psalms, and so many of the Psalms were written by him. And the Psalms are this eloquent and beautiful and lyrical way that the Church has always prayed, that the people of God, that God's chosen people, going all the way back to the time of David, prayed to God and prayed and called out and made their prayer known to God. And so the Church has not stopped doing that ever, even all the way down until today. And so that's part of the obligation that for instance, a priest will take on, or that a religious, a monk or a brother or a sister will take on this obligation and assume this responsibility of reciting the Psalms throughout the day. And the way to do it is to spread it out at certain hours of the day. And there's an official schedule or an official time at each hour, and it's not every hour on the hour kind of a thing. It's more like sort of the larger hours of the day. There's one first thing in the morning, for instance. There's one thing the last thing you do before you go to bed. There's one at the first hour of the day, and the third hour of the day, and the sixth hour of the day, and the ninth hour of the day, and there's one in the evening hour. And so the morning one is called lauds, and the evening one is called vespers. There's even a nighttime one, which is called matins. And these hours are recited throughout the course of the day. Well, going back to the martyrology, the church in Rome said, listen, when anyone's going to gather, especially in an official capacity, and recite the Psalms, especially for the first hour of the day, which would typically take place about 7 o'clock in the morning. It would take place following the wake up, recitation of the Psalms, which is where the day is greeted with the recitation of lauds, which is a group of, and then at the first hour of the day, which is typically around 7 o'clock in the morning, let's say, the church will recite certain psalms, and then will also include the reading of the citation of the martyrology for the day. The reading and typically actually the citation for the day is anticipated. That is to say, at 7 o'clock on today, which happens to be the 13th of February, the citation actually anticipates the saints who are attributed to the following day, the 14th. So that when the day actually arrives, we've been expecting them. We know to expect. It's not like it's a surprise all of a sudden for us to wake up and discover, oh, we're supposed to be celebrating Saint Valentine today. It's like, no, we knew that was coming from the day before. So that's sort of a practical reason why it might be anticipated. And the citation, very simply, it's a 2-line citation. Well, I should say the whole citation for there's looks like about a dozen or so saints who are commemorated on the 14th, and one of them will be featured typically on the given day. So, for instance, our parish is the feast is Saint Joseph. So when you get to the 19th of March, he's the saint who's most preeminently commemorated and celebrated on the 19th of March. There are, however, about a dozen other saints who the church in Rome has commemorated as well on that same day. And same thing throughout the whole year. For instance, Christmas Day. Obviously, the 25th of December is the day where we celebrate the Nativity of the Lord, but there's also a whole bunch of other saints who are commemorated on that day. I think there's a whole group of martyrs, for instance, who were martyred on Christmas Day in the early years of the church getting going, way back in the day, for instance, and their martyrdom is celebrated on Christmas Day, for instance. It's also the feast day, Christmas Day, the 25th, is the feast of Saint Anastasia, who's the patron saint of my niece, because that's her name. My brother and his wife chose Anastasia for their daughter's name, which is great. So anyway, this is a long way around by saying the citation for tomorrow, or for today, anticipating tomorrow, who's Saint Valentine, reads as following. It says, on the 14th day of February, at Rome, upon the Flaminian Way, the blessed martyr Valentine, who was a priest, and who after much healing and teaching was cudgeled and beheaded under Claudius Caesar in the year 268. So that is what it says for the citation for our guy Valentine. I just wanted you to know that. And then it goes on to talk about several others. There's Saint Vitalis and Saint Zeno. There's actually a second Saint Valentine tomorrow. A different Valentine from Umbria. How do you like that? I don't know if you knew that. I'd forgotten about that, or I didn't. There's more than one Valentine on Valentine's Day. Did you know that? I'll just read this other citation. At Teramo in Umbria in the year 273, the holy martyr Valentine, who was the bishop of that see, he was heavily flogged and committed to jail, but as he would not yield, he was thrown out of the prison in the silence of midnight and beheaded by command of Placidus, prefect of the city. There, likewise, in the year 273, the holy martyrs. See, there's also these martyrs, Proculus, Ephebus, and Apollonius, who were watching by the body of Holy Valentine when they were apprehended by the order of Leontius, the consular, and they were slain by the sword. So this is obviously describing a brutal persecution that's going on of the holy ones, of the members of the church there that was in Umbria, and that's about the bishop, the martyr Valentine. So who do we celebrate tomorrow? Which Valentine do we celebrate? I don't know. There's two of them. There's one in Rome whose name was Valentine, and he was martyred upon the Flaminian Way, and there's one in Umbria at Teramo. Looks like a pretty short time later, not even 5 years later. So there you go. And there's several other saints who are commemorated tomorrow. I just wanted to mention that's where we get the information a lot of times. And a lot of times we know very little about the saints other than what was briefly cited and recorded in the citation. For instance, anybody else who knew about him might have forgotten, or maybe the pious devotion to the particular saint ebbed and flowed and then ebbed again, so that there's not a lot of devotion surrounding that saint. There might be a simple shrine that's left, but nobody knows much about him. And I think there's actually several Valentines who are commemorated throughout the year. So we might come across a Valentine who's also commemorated at a later date during the year. I just wanted to the personal note that I wanted to mention about Saint Valentine is that my brother chose him as his confirmation sponsor. I remember particularly, and I remember we all thought it was kind of fun and cool. Oh, he picked Valentine. Yeah, that's neat. And then we was like, oh, wait a minute, he's actually a pretty cool guy. He was a martyr, and I'm not sure which Valentine he picked, or if he knew which one he picked. But the idea that publicly everyone can know about Saint Valentine as sort of the occasion, as the person who's occasioning this day for lovers and for chocolate and for sweethearts, when in fact he himself was a martyr, someone who shed his blood and gave his life in witness to the faith of the apostles and the love of Jesus Christ. I mean, that's pretty strong. So I think what that goes to is say, hey, listen, on the outwardly, I mean, never judge a book by its cover. Outwardly, we may be one thing, but all of us inwardly are called to be saints, for sure, which is why we pick sponsors to begin with. And so my brother picked Saint Valentine, and I should say he picked him as his sponsor. He picked him as his confirmation saint. I forget who he picked as his sponsor, but that's the role of this. I got that backwards. So he picked him as his confirmation saint. His confirmation sponsor, like I said. Well, the role of the confirmation sponsor is to be a saint. Because guess what the role of the person who's getting confirmed is to be a saint. So you have a saint in heaven, you have a saint on earth. You have a saint in heaven who's the name of that the person picks. You have the saint on earth, better be. That's why you can't pick a loser to be your confirmation sponsor. If you're picking somebody who's not practicing their religion, or who's shacking up with their girlfriend, or who's just giving a horrific, terrible example of living the faith, and you got to pick a different sponsor. And that's why the Father's always asking and checking, like, hey, listen, who's your sponsor? Are they somebody who is given a good job? Are they doing a bad job? So there's certain people who cannot be sponsors. And then, so the person in heaven is supposed to be the saint. The sponsor is also supposed to be an example and a saint. And then the person who's being confirmed is supposed to be a saint. Because guess what? One day, they might be writing a citation about you and about me on one of these days. And hopefully it wouldn't be, well, if they are, guess what? That would be awesome. That means that we are in the heavenly realms, adoring and blessing God. So anyhow, there you go. That's a word about Saint Valentine on Saint Valentine's Day. Happy Saint Valentine's Day to everybody. If you like this, let me know, or share it with a friend, or leave a comment on wherever you can leave a comment. So God bless you guys, and we will talk to you next time.